Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee, and today is the 25th of August, and it's about just about 8 o'clock in the morning here, 77 degrees, and we're going to hit 97. But we got a weather warning here. What are they talking about? High temperature. I'm not sure what they're talking about here, but it's funny. It's not really sunny out there, and it's supposed to be sunny, and it's not. So I don't know what's up, really. Uh, that's we're supposed to be dropping in temperature in several days. We're going to start seeing the 80s and the very low 90s, and that is, we basically had a pretty good run for not getting a lot of heavy heat this year. It's the first time I think I remember August, I'm guessing this, that it was this cool, because we frequently get a lot of days where you're hitting, 103, stuff like that, 105, 102. So I'm not complaining. It's nice. So maybe we're getting more into the mercy stages of the Lord dealing with us that way. Okay, if we have any weird occurrences, it looks like my router has a problem, so I'm gonna have it fixed. But it's not fixed right now. But I'll get it fixed. I have a work order and it'll be fixed. And that was where I believe the trouble is coming from. It may not be sabotage. Now, if you start seeing things like freezing, buffering, things like that, sound and picture problems, those of you that have a premium YouTube thing where you pay about $10 a month, and it'll say premium in the upper left of your screen. Go to your studio, that's your other app, the YouTube studio, and from there you should be able to see how to negotiate with help. And you just follow the, need more help, and you get to where you can do it with a live chat or a phone call, and just tell them that the live stream is out and the creator may not even know it and it's having trouble, and just plant the seed. Say, it looks like somebody's sabotaging the broadcast. Now they'll ignore that. They'll say it's ridiculous. They always do. Okay, but remember, people, there are such a thing as hackers. Okay, so when they tell you that, I wouldn't bother fighting with them at YouTube, just plant the seed and let it go. They'll try to pursue what's wrong. You need to give them the name of the channel and the title of the video, the live stream for today. And then whatever it is, they'll take care of it. They'll fix it. Hopefully, if somebody's playing games with us, they get caught. All right. I've had trouble with these routers in the past, and it does it when I'm not on the air. It does it during the night. It does it early in the morning, late at night, after I'm many hours off the air. And so, yeah, I mean, it could be somebody keeps attacking the router to confuse me and make me think something's wrong. And I had a long session yesterday with them checking it. So it could be that, and it could also be that there's something malfunctioning with the connection, or with the router, or with how it's connecting, or whatever. I don't know exactly. So it may very well not be an attack. Okay. Um, so I'm on. We have other networks in the house, so I'm on one of the other networks, and it should be okay. Um, So that's what I think is going on. After maybe 8 or 10 phone calls to the internet people trying to do all kinds of things to fix it, I have a feeling that they'll change a lot of things, including the router, tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Okay. Um, and they might come today yet too, so I might actually get them to be here today. I don't know, and it may be tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. I'm doing what I can to get them over here. All right. Uh, okay, so today we're going to talk. We got a new thing to talk about. I don't usually talk much about Russia and Ukraine, but there was new developments involving the UK Storm Shadow missile blueprints, which is giving Ukraine the ability to manufacture in their own factories their own Storm Shadow missiles, which have a range of 155 miles. That's not what I would say a long range missile. I would call that a medium range missile, but it's not going to sit well with Russia. And Russia is implying strongly that the UK is at war with Russia. Will Russia attack the UK? I have no idea. I don't think so, but I can't give you a guarantee. Russia's desperate. So we're going to talk about what Russia's doing to the private industries, and we'll talk about the sanctions on Iran and what's going on with that. And then I have a very interesting story to tell you about relocating to Puerto Rico as an American. You'll find it really interesting, and we'll see what we do after that. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the live stream and put a post up in the chat. Make sure we're good. Okay, how's that sound? How's that sound? Okay, how's that sound? How's that sound? Sound looks good to me. All right. Thank you for everybody greeting me, and I'm going to put a post up. Okay, let me check it for typos. Offerings have been down. That's not good news for me. All right, let me see if this pinned up. It looks like it did. Okay, it's pinned up. I think we're good. Um, I heard from one of the people that I've been talking about with homeless, and we had some email correspondence, and he, this person's still homeless. That's not good, but I suggested that this person try different locations, different counties in the state that this person is in, and they're agreeing. So that might solve the problem. If you're in the big cities, I think like Miami, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, New York, the homeless situation could be massive. And There's a lot of people in America that are very skilled at the welfare system. They're third, fourth, even fifth generation, and they get on as soon as they're of age, 18, 21, they get right in the system. They're, they have a social worker from the mother or the father, usually just the mother hanging around, sometimes the father too. So they already have a caseworker, so they slip right in, and while they're still, able to stay with their parents, they get themselves on the system, and then they go after the Section 8. So it's really the multi-generational welfare people, to a great extent, that are clogging up the system and, hoarding, so to speak, the Section 8 housing and all of that stuff. They keep it for themselves because they're working the system effectively, and they're doing it generation to generation, and they get all the benefits, and they know how to do it. They're not stumbling around and that kind of thing. So when new people really need it, it's almost like the social workers say, oh, these people managed the last 30 years, they can manage again, whereas my other people that are multi-generation welfare can't manage. So we're not going to really work for the other people. We'll just put pressure on them, and they'll find a way to make it on their own. And that's wrong, because the economy is bad. And Trump, you hear he just gave another country $200 million, and he gives another one $500 million, and this and that. Will he give anything to the homeless people in America? No, he's a rat like the rest of them. Don't you get it? He won't. He won't. I mean, why doesn't he? If he came up with 200 or $500 million for homeless people, what would it do? It would make a dent, but he needs to be coming up with that every month. What did they do during the Great Depression? I'll tell you. They opened up work camps, the government did, okay? Like they did this in Yosemite National Park. They built paths, they built staircases to walk up, things like this, okay? The government did it. The government makes money out of thin air, okay? So the government told these people, you need work, come to the work camps, okay? They'd go to the work camp and they would work. They would get a barracks to live in, okay? Now, I don't know exactly what they looked like. I think it was a room with 20 or so beds, and that was it. And they locked them in at night, okay? Because they didn't want people running around getting drunk or doing that. They just wanted people going to sleep and getting up in the morning having breakfast, okay? So you had a dining room, you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You weren't hungry, you got paid, you were able to send the money home to your wife and kids who had a house to live in or an apartment, and they could make the rent while you worked. You weren't with your family, they were not homeless, they were not out in the snow, they were not out in the rain, and you were around other people, and you were that was it. You had a job, and it wasn't a good job, it wasn't a bad job. You had a place to live. So what did they do? Everybody had food on the table, and you had to work for it, okay? That's what they did. And at that time, women stayed home with the children, they didn't work, okay? So the government did stuff like that, okay? I don't know if there's more people walking around homeless in America now than there were in the Depression, because the population has changed. But things were bad in the Depression. Now, some of the people were probably not able to go get into this work program. Why? They might have had health problems, handicap. You needed to be able-bodied, okay? I don't know if they took people that were 61 years old into the program. Maybe they cut it off at 45 or 50. I don't know. I don't know what happened with that. I have no idea. Okay? So the government of America is just shut down the wall to people. They put a wall up against them, and you're not getting in the welfare system. Okay? And we have crazy phenomena. We got people living in cars that where they could get away with it and that are working. They get up and go to work and they live in a car. So what are they able to do? They're able to buy food and stuff. Okay. Now I'm not in any position to tell anybody you should move or relocate out of America. I'm going to later today give you an anecdotal story about how you could move to Puerto Rico and how you could live down there, and it's going to be kind of humorous the way I present it. It's going to make a mockery of the welfare system, and it certainly could be exploited by somebody if they wanted to. And I'll also discuss the lack of feasibility for doing this in the U.S. Virgin Islands or Guam or Samoa and places like that, and you just can't do it effectively. All right. There's other islands America owns, and it doesn't work there either. Samoa is a particularly nasty bunch of people. They're involved in the U.S. system, okay? And I don't think they have much trouble moving to America. I believe they just get on a plane and come to America, like Puerto Rico or U.S. Virgin Islands. However, if you want to go to Samoa, forget it. They won't let you go to Samoa. Why America lets countries do this, I don't know. They're very nasty towards America. Yet they could go freely move to America. What do they want you to do if you're going to go to America or go to Samoa? You got to have a job there, or you got to have blood relatives in Samoa that are going to vouch for you and take you in and stuff like that, or post a bond for you or something like that. You know, that's pretty nasty. It's extremely cheap to live in Samoa, and that's why they don't want to let anybody in. So that's just another bunch of people taking advantage of America. And when they did this, which was probably 60, 80 years ago or something, they, who knows when, a long time ago for sure, nobody in America really wanted to go live in Samoa, so they didn't care about it. Okay? Now, in Puerto Rico in the 50s and 60s, they were coming to America saying, everything free in America. That was from the movie West Side Story. And they were getting welfare in America. But I'll tell you how you can go to Puerto Rico today and live cheaper and get welfare there. Because it's the same welfare, it's American welfare. And your Medicare works in Puerto Rico, and it works better in Puerto Rico than it does in America, and I'll go through that with you. Okay, so you can go back and get a payback out of Puerto Rico, so to speak. It's kind of funny. Okay, so I'm going to do some praise now. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, let's see where we're going on prayer requests. If we got any, when I get them during the day and the night, I write them down, and I didn't get any. So please pray for the mommy dog. She's pretty okay. I mean, she wants to eat, she drinks water, she runs around, she'll bark, she wags her tail, She wants to get petted and play with you, you know, but she's not quite herself. We haven't started her on the new medicine yet. We got one more day. So please keep praying for the mommy dog for good healing, okay? I appreciate that. So I'll do a prayer for us. My Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, that we have a good live stream today, no problems, no sabotage, no technical problems. We have a good time, we enjoy ourselves, we learn, and you help us and you give us a nice anointing that helps us and brings us peace and calm and joy. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. I'll give you some stuff that's going on that I find is interesting. As you know, it says in the scriptures in Jeremiah 50:51, I will kindle fires in it about your cities. Okay, an out of control wildfire that jumped over the trucks, over the fire trucks, and made it difficult for crews to reach hot spots, destroyed homes in northern Reno, Nevada on Sunday. Today's what, Tuesday? Shifting winds. Uh-oh. I hope, let's see what's going on. I don't think much is going on. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't look too exciting. Okay. Oh, wait, it could be the, I don't know what it is. All right, I think it's probably some of the internet. All right, but I mean, nothing that I need to deal with. Okay. So shifting winds challenged firefighters trying to bring it under control, and authorities urged some 90,000 people to evacuate. Now, this is not the first time we're seeing this stuff happen in a city. We've seen it in Los Angeles, and we've also seen it in Oregon and some cities. It just seems to be out on the outskirts like this is. It doesn't really get into the inner city and burn, but it could, and it will probably happen sooner than later. So, like I tell you, the fires is a sign, and most people want to ignore it, okay? In America. I'm not telling you to watch for fires in Europe or Asia or South America, I'm saying in the United States. Now, you know, you have territories of the United States. Now, Alaska and Hawaii are states. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico are like territories. I think Guam is too. And there's some other islands, Mariana Island. I don't know what their real status is. I don't know. Territories, are they going to get destroyed also? I expect so. Maybe not, I don't know. There's not a lot of population in these places, you know. The problem with living in some of these islands is a lot of things get imported and they're expensive because you have to ship them in, and then they put tax on them because, well, I don't know what Puerto Rico does with tax on that, but if it comes from America or it's not imported foreign from a foreign country, I don't know what they do. But the shipping is expensive on these things. So if you're going to live in a place like Puerto Rico or Virgin Islands, you can't go to the supermarket, the Safeway or Publix or Walmart or whatever, and go buy your American foods there. You'll go broke. It's going to be more money than what you spend in America for food. You have to buy, you got to get in to go into the open air markets, and you've got to buy the fruits and vegetables that they raise in Puerto Rico, and the beef and the chicken that is raised in Puerto Rico. You got to get that like in open air markets, little butcher stores, uh, things like that. So living in the big city isn't going to cut it. San Juan is the big city. Rents are high, food is high, everything is high. You got to live in the smaller cities, and you've got to eat what the people eat. They're not going around buying all the American food, okay? They're not buying the ballpark hot dogs and Sara Lee cakes and Swanson TV dinners, and that. They're not doing any of that, okay? You're eating their fruit, their vegetables. Fresh fish should be quite abundant over there, and you get chicken and beef from the island. Probably chicken would be a lot cheaper, so you would have to modify uh, your eating to match the local scene, which would be the same if you went to live anywhere, if you went to Thailand or any expat haven. Now, I'm not telling anybody to go leave. I'm just mentioning this if somebody is facing homeless and they have an income. If they're getting an income from disability or military disability or military retirement or Social Security retirement or perhaps a private pension, and they're not able to make it in America, okay? This is another way to make it in America, because Puerto Rico's America. And it's one that the people don't talk about on the internet. You'll see how they talk about move to Vietnam, move to Cambodia, move to the Philippines, move to Thailand, move to this place. That they never say move to Puerto Rico if you're an American. If you're not an American, it makes very little sense whatsoever. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So now we see the U.S. strikes a vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people in the first attack in months. U.S. Southern Command has struck another vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 trafficking narcotics, or I don't know, you say trafficking drugs. I would assume saying trafficking narcotics and trafficking drugs is about the same thing. Okay, Netanyahu says Iran tried to murder one of his sons. He doesn't say which, or gives more detail. He's got 2 of them, I think, 2 sons. He doesn't give us much detail. Do I think Netanyahu is telling the truth? Yes. What would I give it for a rating? I would go 95% on that one. Almost for sure it's real. Will Netanyahu vindictively try to pay back Iran on this? Yeah. Will it be like in terms of general war or targeted assassinations? Targeted assassinations. Trump is also talking about them trying to kill the kid. What's the name of the kid? The one that never talks, a big tall kid who doesn't talk. I don't know what the kid's name is anymore. There was something Trump said about them gunning for the kid. Iran. Hegseth is saying the U.S. is not ruling out military force against Iran. U.S. on Monday announced an expansion of secondary sanctions it hopes will sever every economic lifeline sustaining Iran as Trump administration struggles to resolve an unpopular war that's pushed energy prices higher. They're not that high. I think the WTI was about 85 and the Brent was low 90s. It's not that high. Okay. Um, the Treasury Secretary Besant, he actually seems to be rather competent. Uh, he does what he's told, but I think the guy's actually competent, which is rare for them to appoint somebody that actually knows what they're doing. He unveiled what he described as an economic D-Day. Now, D-Day was an invasion in Europe against the Nazis. It's an inappropriate analogy that aims to give a final warning to countries to cut their business ties with Iran or risk having key companies and entities cut off from the dollar-based financial system. That means they're going to be cut off from swift wire transfers. It means it's rather serious. And they'll have, they might not get tariffs from America. They might just be excluded from commerce with America. So, do I think it's serious? Yeah. It's extremely serious. Now, here's what is going on that I think Trump is worried about. He has not put an air embargo, a NOTAM, on Iran. So aircraft come and go. So food can be flown in. If you're a wealthy Iranian Satan bot or something like that, you're going to go buy food. You're going to have food. The railroads are being used to send oil to China, and they have 2 or 3 open border routes with Pakistan so things could come in through Pakistan, and they bought many trucks, tanker trucks for oil, to distribute oil to other countries that they could get to by truck. So you're seeing some problems. Okay. China said they're going to defy the United States, and they're going to continue to trade with Iran, oil and other things. And I don't know if Trump's really going to put the sanctions on Iran. I don't know what happens if 5 Chinese oil tanker ships show up going through the Straits of Hormuz. Does Trump stop them and say, you can't go to Iran? That could be war with China. Or does he say, go ahead, you want the oil? Go for it, but you're going to have sanctions. You see, the great voice, the hammer of the whole earth, is getting the whole earth sick and tired of putting up with it. Okay? They really are. And I don't know how this is going to play out. If China gets away with it, India is going to get away with it. And if India and China go there, they're going to buy 100% of Iran's oil and other resources. And then that's it. It's over. I mean, what Iran doesn't care. They got more money. China buys 90% of their oil. So Trump's next military move might be what? Karg Island, Kharg, 15 miles off the southern coast of Iran. It has a pipeline going in there for oil. They have storage tanks. Oil goes into said storage tanks. These are great big round things, go high up in the air. They could go 10 stories up, and they could be, 100 feet wide or whatever, big things. And Carver Island's an island, so that's where 90%, I'm using that 90% number again, but it's unrelated. 90% of the oil that Iran sells is loaded onto ships on Carg Island.
I've got my papers.
You got, okay, great. It gets loaded on in Carg Island, okay? So Iran has a military presence in Carg Island. Can Trump take that out? Yeah. But this is your problem with Trump. He's conflicted. He wants their oil. Okay? He wants to control their oil. So he has a lot of trouble biting the bullet. Okay, Trump could take 8 or 12 F-15s, F-16s, and say bomb Carg Island. Okay? They make a few bombing runs. It's over in 90 minutes or 45 minutes. Carg Island is smoking and burning, and that's the end of Carg Island. The pipeline is broken there. The oil storage facility, those vats that hold oil, is destroyed. The place where the ships tie up at the dock is destroyed. There is no more dock. There is no more pier. There is no more nothing. If the soldiers there get killed or they don't get killed, it doesn't matter to Trump. Okay? Will he do that? I doubt it. Because he's conflicted. He can't think straight. What would thinking straight look like? Destroy Carg Island. We don't need it. If we're going to rebuild Iran, we'll rebuild Iran. And that's the end of it. If he destroys Carg Island, are there going to be ships from India and China going in there to fill up with oil? Well, there's still 10%. They could fill some ships up, but you just blow that up too. So China could bring in all the ships they want. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't allow Trump to ignore his naval blockade because he doesn't want to see weapons coming in to he doesn't want to see weapons coming into Iran, so he'd have to keep the blockade going, or I don't know. I mean, he could search the ships to see what's going on. I mean, I don't know. So a sign of Trump getting serious is destroying Carg Island because it removes the conflict. I'll explain. Iran shows up with 8 ships. Trump says you can't come in. You want to go to UAE, you want to go to Bahrain, Qatar, you want to go to, Kuwait, go get your oil. Go to Saudi, get your oil. Not Iran. China says, this and that. The next thing you know, 4 Chinese destroyers come and China says, listen, we're prepared to go to full war with you. Let our ships in to get oil. You have no right to stop us. Your sanctions are illegal. You're illegal. You try it. We're going to fight back. We're going to have a war. Trump will never do it. He's afraid. So how do you deal with the problem without looking like a big crybaby? You blow Carg Island up. Okay. Does Trump have the guts to do that? Probably not unless he's confronted. He's a gutless wonder, guys. You got to deal with that. Okay. And that might be the military action that Hexus is speaking of. The problem you got with Trump is wholly bad enough. He's wholly bad enough to try to not destroy Carg Island, or he might try to get special forces to invade it and save it and occupy it and keep it running, but just occupy it. So of course China comes in, they're not getting oil, so why are they going to come in? But when the day comes when Trump owns and controls Iran, which isn't going to happen, then he's controlling their oil, and then he's going to have his friends at Chevron sell the oil, that sort of thing. It's really a shame he thinks this way. So they're saying, dissent from the, Treasury is saying, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime. He's right about that. Until Tehran stands alone, Bissett said at a press conference. I think this is odd that Bissett is actually competent. Usually Trump doesn't have competent people. You think Hegseth and Vance and Witkoff are confident? I don't. You think the kid Kushner is confident? I don't. I mean, Marco Rubio, you think he's confident? He ain't bad, really, but not so confident. The U.S. removed Syria's designation as state sponsor of terrorism. This could be to try to get a reversal on Russia moving into the two bases in Syria by Latakia or Latakia, depending how you want to pronounce it. One giving Russia a base in the Mediterranean to wage war with NATO, which America is part of. So that's what I'm looking at here. Okay. Bissett, the Treasury Secretary guy, is apparently not targeting major Chinese banks that are working with Iran. So already Trump is wrecking his own plan. Okay? He can get along and tell everybody what a great job he's doing, but as long as they can sell oil to China, he's a laughingstock for the 10 or 15% of the people that understand what's going on. and the effect on Iran is going to be minimal. 90% of Iran's oil production has been going to China until recently. Okay. Um, the Houthis targeted a Saudi oil tanker in the Red Sea, missile and drone attack. So it was a serious attack. I don't know what the damage is. And, it takes a little time to come out often, but it will come out. Pakistan, Turkey are doing nothing about it. We're getting reports that Pakistan is trying to get Iran to come to the table for negotiations with America. I don't think it's working. There was 2 earthquakes in Japan in one day. Okay, I have to admit that is pretty weird, but normally when you get a substantial earthquake, you get aftershocks. And aftershocks could continue for 2 or 3, 4 days. When they had the big one in San Francisco that broke the Bay Bridge, I think it was in '89 or maybe '90. The aftershocks continued for at least 3 days. And the aftershocks were coming in like at a 5, 5.5. I mean, they were shakers. They didn't last very long, but they were shakers. The big one lasted a long time. I remember that. I was sitting there looking at my screen door. I was living in Concord, which was 15 or 17 miles away from San Francisco on the other side of the bay. So I wasn't in San Francisco, but I was close enough. We had a screen door, well, like a sliding glass door that went to a patio in the backyard, and it had an aluminum frame, the standard thing, you slid it, and it was moving like this. I mean, it was like a comic book, but it wasn't the comic book. It was moving a half a foot, I'd say, each direction. Water was thrown up out of the toilet. It was shaking that bad. We had dogs and cats. They didn't know what was going on. I don't think our power went out. No, it did for a while. We did lose power, I remember. Yeah. The phone went out. I had a toll-free number, an 800 number then for business, and some of you don't remember 800 numbers, I guess, but it was working, but the local numbers weren't. It was plenty scary. We had a swimming pool, and the swimming pool came out of where it was sitting in the ground. I mean, it was all kinds of spaces, and loose water was flying out of the swimming pool. People saw the ground open up like this much or this much, even, I don't know, maybe that much, and they were looking down. It was quite a thing, and that was around the 7, I think, something like that, and it's 6'9", and it broke the Bay Bridge. The upper level fell down. There was a freeway in downtown San Francisco that broke, just came down. I mean, it was serious. But the aftershocks were coming for quite a while. They were coming for quite a while. All right. So when you have two in one day, I wonder if it was an aftershock or there were two separate earthquakes. This is one question I have. This was on August 23rd. It says they were unrelated. Uh, they were 900 kilometers apart. Okay. I guess they really were two separate earthquakes. They were 40 kilometers deep, which is a rather deep earthquake. I think the real scary earthquakes are close to the surface, but I don't. I think it all really depends on the Richter scale reading. So yeah, this is a phenomenon that is not anything that is common. I don't know if it happened previously or not, but it's serious. Yeah, they called Trump's kid Barron. Iran ran some sort of a promotion and said where to kill Barron Trump. So they were telling people, probably his routine, and where to kill him, where his vulnerability is. And they said they would pay 10 million uh, for the president for Trump's kid. So the way it worked is a state TV station in Iran had a segment, and they're saying purportedly detailing the place of residence and habits of U.S. President Trump's youngest son, Barron, as voiceover claimed many would be willing to assassinate him. I'm sure that if you contacted them and you were known to be an assassin, or I don't know, you knew how to contact them, they would throw in an asylum in Iran for this, so you would be able to go to Iran and live your life out over there, but it would be a pretty brief period. I don't know if they really expect to get anybody to do this. I think they're just doing it to irritate Trump. I don't think the Secret Service thinks it's funny, and they probably doubled the detail on Barron Trump. And what they may have done is restricted his activities for a while being a month or two. That would not be nice for the kid, but there you have it. And then they also were going after Netanyahu's kid. So, it sounds real to me. Iran threatens to strike U.S. bases across Europe if the countries aid the financial attack. So they're saying if you're going to, abide by Trump's new, sanctions thing, we're going to attack bases in your country, American bases. Which is going to raise the amount of enemies Iran has, through the roof. I think they're going to restrict this to bases that America uses as part of their military operations to attack Iran. So if they bring refueling tankers in to, like they did Bulgaria, and they put them on a Bulgarian military base, well, then Bulgaria would be at risk, and Bulgaria told the United States to take the tanker planes out, and they did. So I'll read you this article. Tehran Asian, no, Asim Tehran, in Tehran. This is Asim Munir, the commander of the Pakistan Army. So he's the big shot. Dressed in a suit and with a sharp haircut, is attempting to advance negotiations between Iran and the United States meeting with the president of Iran and the speaker of the Iranian parliament. So he's walking a very precarious path here. He's in this trilogy with Saudi Arabia and Turkey, the all for one and one for all. So an attack on any one of these three countries is to be treated as an attack on all of them. It's like the NATO thing. And now they're trying to negotiate with Iran, and I think that's an excuse for not going, stepping up to the plate and swinging the bat at Iran. Here's an article from the Israeli media. You could deal with it as you will. Arabs are no longer speaking just about peace with Israel, but in some cases with astonishing admiration for the Jewish state, its army, its resilience, and its social cohesion. A Lebanese Christian announced he is planning to travel to Tel Aviv and visit the grave of Ariel Sharon. Honestly, I could care less if he does it or he doesn't do it. An Israeli Shiite urges his compatriots, an Iraqi Shiite urges his compatriots learn from Israel. Saudis speak Hebrew? Lebanese journalists declare peace with Israel a national interest, and Gulf Arabs defend Israel soldiers before an Arab audience. Something is shifting in the Arab world, still quietly, still far from gaining majority support, but by how impossible to ignore. Um, they could be impressed with us, but that doesn't mean they're not still interested in getting rid of us. Uh, they will maybe, say, okay, we'll trade with you guys and normalize relations because we want you to sell us weapons to protect against Iran, like Iron Domes and stuff like that. They'll do that, but it's not going to be long lasting or real. Once Iran is gone, and they'll turn against us. They're just going to do it while they need us, if they ever get there. Canada's double standard. Ottawa is warning Canadian businesses against dealing with Israel over goods made in the West Bank, Samaria, and Judea. They don't want their goods sold, goods that are made in the West Bank sold in Canada. And Qatar, which has a record of migrant worker abuse, like employers keeping their passports and making them work for years and years and years, holding payback and punishing them, and basically some form of slavery, and providing a safe haven for Hamas leaders. Carney of Canada says lecturing countries from afar is an ineffective strategy, a courtesy he extends to Qatar, but never to Jerusalem. The country gets engagement. I don't know what he said. One country gets engagement, the other gets singled out. Oh, for censure, we get singled out to be our goods restricted, and they're accusing us of saying we have no right to have Samaria and Judea. Like, they ignore God. This is the controversy over Zion. The nations are fighting with God, and Canada is on the wrong side of this, rest assured. Canada's got themselves in a tizzy with Trump and these some type of sanctions mess up. I don't know, 50% sanctions going on Canada or something like that. I don't quite understand what Trump's trying to do to Canada, but he's trying to be the great voice and the hammer of the whole earth, and it's not really the same America as it used to be. So, yeah, it's not working out well. Now, the UK gave, I believe, longer range missiles, the Storm Shadow, to Ukraine. But what they also did is they gave Ukraine the blueprints. So they gave Ukraine the information needed to manufacture the Storm Shadow missile, which Ukraine is capable of doing rather quickly. They're going to have to gear up, maybe make molds or different things, but that's fine. Gearing up, they will. The Storm Shadow is a good missile for sure, and it has 155-mile range, which means I think their previous missiles were letting them go around 90 miles. So this is a serious, if that's the case, they're picking up another 65 miles. So that means more trouble for Russian airports, more of them, more trouble for oil refineries, storage tanks, a lot of problems. So Russia is basically saying that the UK is entering the war against them. Um, what does that mean Russia's going to do? I don't know. Is it possible that Russia would have some ships fire missiles into the UK? That's NATO. That brings NATO on his head. He can't even conquer Ukraine. How's he going to conquer NATO? I mean, he could do it if he thinks they're not going to respond. I think he's wrong. Um, he'll try to find more other ways to do it. Maybe cyber attacks. Um, Russia is people are saying Russia's in trouble. I think the people saying Russia is in trouble are correct. Russia is grabbing companies inside Russia and taking them over and saying that these companies are not taking appropriate measures to protect themselves from drone attacks, specifically those from Ukraine. So Putin's grabbing companies. Now, this is the confusing thing, is the military is supposed to protect the private industry. That's how it works. So this is kind of backwards. How do you go to a private company and say we're taking you over because of your inability to defend against Ukraine drones? Look, they can't just go get on the phone and call Amazon and say we need 25 Patriot missile launchers, and nobody will sell it to them. They'll only sell these products to the government. The government doesn't sell missile systems and defensive, offensive, whatever missile systems to the private sector. That's just something that's reserved for the government. So the whole thing makes no sense. Penalizing private sector companies to the point of confiscating them is stupid. It makes zero sense. So the thought is Putin's really in bad shape, like as on last legs, and trying to grab the companies for money and stuff like that. People in Iran are now saying there's some sort of gasoline shortage, as in big gasoline lines to buy gasoline, stuff like that, coming from the opposition, or the people that oppose the Iranian government, and they're saying this. So I would say it's true. Okay, so I will talk now a little bit about Puerto Rico, and it's so odd that I've never seen or heard anybody get on the internet and talk about relocating to Puerto Rico for Americans. It doesn't do any good to relocate, from other countries. You got immigration issues, and very similar to going to America. Now, tax-wise, Puerto Rico is going to tax you just like America will. The difference is the tax money stays in Puerto Rico. It doesn't go to Washington, D.C. They have their own little IRS that does it. So if you're looking to run your business, you're an online entrepreneur, then Puerto Rico is not a great idea if you're trying to do something for your tax basis, assuming you're not an American, of course. Okay. Can you live in Puerto Rico on at least $1,500 a month pension? The answer is yes. But forget living in San Juan. If you're going to go to San Juan, the capital city, you're going to be probably at least $700 a month on an apartment. Okay, plus everything's expensive, so you've got to go to the smaller areas. Can you live where you're probably going to be down as low as 350, but more realistically, you're probably going to be at 400 or 500 a month rent for a nice one bedroom, probably furnished with an air conditioner. It's not going to be palatial, but it's going to be comfortable. Okay, you're not going to have ceiling falling down, and you're not going to have cockroach parades at night. You know, you're going to be comfortable there. And you could be near the beach. Now, if you want to be on the beach, first of all, it's a bad idea. Because, well, it's a good idea and a bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? If there's a hurricane, the people that are right at where the sand ends. Okay, so how does this typically work? You have the sand from the beach, and it could be 100 feet to the road. There'll always be a road, or it could be 350 feet to the road, whatever. Okay, and then there's a road which could be one lane each direction or 2 lanes each direction. Sometimes 3 lanes each direction. Usually 1 or 2 lanes each direction. So how the roads may be 50 feet across, and then after the road you get parking, you get a sidewalk, and now you have buildings that face the water unobstructed. Number one, let me tell you about this. When you do that at night and you look out of your unobstructed view to the ocean, you see a blackness. Maybe if there's a full moon, you'll see some stuff, or a 3/4 moon or something, but typically you see nothing. It's just black. During the day, it is beautiful. Okay? Now, if you live in San Francisco on the bay, maybe you live in Tiburon and you face San Francisco. At night, what does it look like? It looks great because there's lights going across the bay to San Francisco, or vice versa, and the bridges light up, and you can see the water because of all the lights to some extent, and it's a very interesting view. And during the daytime, it's even better. Okay, so when you're just looking out over an ocean and it goes hundreds and thousands of miles, you're looking at a black hole at night. During the day, it's not. If you're going to try to live in that first row of apartments or houses right on the other side of the road, so you can just run across the road and bring your blanket and lay down on the beach, you're going to pay a premium for that, which is probably not a great idea for you as an expat, unless you're someplace in the $2,500 to $3,000 range, because you might pay $800 or $900 a month for a nice apartment right on the water. That would probably be in San Juan or something, but maybe you could, it's probably going to cost you a $200 premium versus being 2 blocks or 3 blocks away from the water. So if you wanted to go to the beach, you'd put your stuff in a bag of some sort, put it over your shoulder or carry it, and walk for 10 minutes or however it takes you to go 2 or 3 blocks. It may take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And you go to the beach and you set yourself up on the beach and you put your blanket down and you're at the beach, right? Okay. Not the same thing as living at the first row of houses by the water, because you got a balcony usually and you're sitting on your balcony. It's like being on the beach. So if you can afford it, it's nice. If you're going to try to pull a move like that in America at a nice beach, you're not going to spend $700 or $800 a month. You're going to spend, maybe 4,500 or some crazy amount. It's not going to be cheap, depending where it is. Uh, you might be able to go to Florida on the Gulf up there at the north, the Panhandle, and a one bedroom right on the water. I would think dead bare bones minimum 1,200, probably 1,500, 1,700 for a nice place, something like that. You're not going to get it real cheap here. It's not going to be $700 unless the economy is all falling apart and nobody moves in and people are desperate. But it's usually pretty expensive. And what a lot of these things are in Florida is they turn into daily rentals. In other words, they rent them out by the day as a hotel. They don't. They're not looking for people to rent them for a year. So if they're doing a hotel, they're charging, I don't know, 200 a night, let's say, 160, whatever. So somebody comes and they stay, 4 nights, they get $800. They'd rather have somebody there 4 nights for $800 than rent it to somebody for $1,500. But they might have 3 or 4 people come during the month and rent it, and they might make more money that way. But a lot of times they're dreaming and they're hoping they're going to make 3,000 or 4,000 a month. But anyway, that's another story. So you've got to the food costs in Puerto Rico can kill you if you're going to try to buy American food. So you've got to buy the local food. You got to eat the local crops and the chicken and the beef locally. There's a lot of beef down there. So you shouldn't be killing yourself with that. You'll have eggs, you'll have cheese, you'll have chicken, you'll have beef, and you'll have a lot of seafood. And seafood, you'll have to go to open air markets, which I'm sure they have. Okay, in the smaller areas. You don't want to be in the great big cities here, because you're not going to accomplish what you want there. You go to the smaller areas and they'll have open air markets, I'm rather sure, and you go there and there's going to be, if you go in there at 8 or 9 in the morning, you're going to see fish that was caught at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So your fish is very fresh, laying on ice or something like that, okay? You got to be careful you're not getting a day old or 2 day old fish, okay? So you want to go and, try to figure out who you're dealing with and, see if other people are buying from them, the locals and that kind of thing. If the other locals are buying from that guy, then you can buy from that guy. If there's people there the other locals won't buy from, well, then he's probably getting the leftover fish at a cheap price and trying to sell it in. It may still be workable, but it may not be what you want. So you're getting fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and fresh fish. What's not to like? I don't understand, right? Okay. And you're going to be paying a lot less than what you're paying in America. All right? Maybe not super duper cheaper. Like if you go to, Cambodia, it's going to be very cheap, but you're in Cambodia. Here, you're in America. All right, let me explain the advantages to you. Okay, first of all, you just show up in Puerto Rico, and I'm American. Now that means you're a resident of Puerto Rico. You're a citizen of Puerto Rico. If you want to be, if you live there, there is no immigration. You show you're American. You don't even need a passport to get there. If you can find a direct flight, you can show your birth certificate in Puerto Rico and they let you in. You don't even need a passport. That's how good it is, okay? Say you have a passport, it's easy. You give me a passport, oh, come on in, welcome home. You're home. But when you show up, you walk out of the airport, you're a Puerto Rican now, okay? You get yourself a residence and you're a Puerto Rican. Your driver's license is good for a while, then you gotta probably convert it to a Puerto Rico driver's license, which may or may not have a road test. It might be a written test and an eye test, and that's probably about all they're going to have. I don't know about reciprocity with gun permits. It might happen. They passed a law that said they can do reciprocity with gun permits from America, only from America, but I don't know if they ever did it, so I'd be very careful about that. If you were taking a direct flight into Puerto Rico, could you put a gun in your baggage and bring it there? I don't know. You'd have to talk to the airline, probably. I don't know. You'd have to talk to Puerto Rico and the airline. I don't know about that. You might get in trouble with maybe you want to sell the gun and buy another one in Puerto Rico. You can buy another gun in Puerto Rico once you have an address in Puerto Rico, which takes a few minutes, and maybe they want to see a Puerto Rican driver's license, which is no big deal. Then you go to a Puerto Rico gun store, you walk in, hey, I want gun, Glock, 9mm, whatever, right? Okay. And you probably don't have a gun permit yet, so you might have a waiting period and you'll have the gun. Now you can keep the gun in the house. Can you get a gun permit in Puerto Rico? Yes. If you don't have a criminal record, it's what you would call a must-issue jurisdiction. In other words, they passed a law in 2020 that it's very difficult for them to deny you buying a gun unless you got a criminal record. They can check to see if you have a criminal record, that kind of thing. Okay, so if you don't have a criminal record, or you don't have felonies, or you don't have any, maybe, you're beating up your spouse or your children or something. Assuming you don't have these problems with criminality on your record, you have your gun permit. So now you've relocated to another country, but it's not another country, and now you can have a gun if you're so inclined to have a gun, if that's important to you. So the thing you need to understand is in 2020, when they passed this law 6 years ago, soon to be 7 years, well, let's say 6, the crime rate in Puerto Rico would have went like, whoop, okay, because it always goes, whoop. The governments don't want to tell you that, but it always goes down, because criminals are not able to buy the gun legally or have it and carry it legally. So the criminal gets a gun, and the cops grab him. Well, now the felon with the gun, carrying it concealed in the course of a crime, is getting probably another 5 years on his sentence. So he's going away for years. They don't like that. So they try to find other ways of committing crime, or they wind up getting arrested and they give up, Okay, so your crime against person and against houses goes down. Okay, is that going to reduce crime against somebody trying to steal a music player out of a car? Maybe not. Okay, they might not bother with that. But what about shoplifting? Well, they might try shoplifting. What about rape? No. Woman pulls out her little pistol and pops the guy. He could be paralyzed, he could be dead, he could be in a hospital for 6 months. All kinds of problems. Okay, he could be limping after that. All kinds of things are wrong. What about robbing people for money? It's the same thing. Boom, boom, boom. You start following. See, the robber, I used to work in law enforcement, the robber and the rapist interview people. An interview is usually verbal. It could be nonverbal, but usually it's verbal. They want to see fear. What they don't want to see is you reaching to your hip and holding your hand on your hip and getting ready to put a cap in their head. If that's a bullet. Okay, they don't want that. Okay? That's the wrong reaction. That means you failed the interview and they're not going to do anything. And they're going to be nervous to get the heck out of there before you pop a couple of rounds in them. Okay? They're now worried you're going to get spooked and you're going to break the law and shoot them even though they haven't done anything to you yet. They will go away. So it should be relatively safe down there. And if you're worried about, getting something wrong with you at the beach, you could take your gun to the beach with you. The way you would do that, if you were going to do it, is put it in a plastic bag, a Ziploc bag, so you don't have sand in all your gun. You'd want to keep, I wouldn't really, go in the water with the gun either. That's not a great idea. I mean, you could rig, if I was really interested in it, I would rig something up, okay? I would get a pair of shorts, long, baggy, short pants, and I would have a special pocket sewn into the pants with a zipper. So I would keep a gun in the plastic bag, in the pocket, in the zipper compartment. So I know I'm not losing the gun, and I know no water's getting in the gun, and no sand is getting in the gun. Okay? Getting the gun out is going to be slow and deliberate. That's the problem. Okay? So, assuming nobody wants to assassinate you, you could go to the beach from your apartment, walk to the beach 3 blocks, forget your gun, get yourself a plastic bag and put maybe your driver's license in there and some small amount of money, $20, $30 or $10 or something if you want to buy a soda or ice cream or something like that, or don't even bring your driver's license, just bring some money in a plastic bag and stick it in some kind of pocket you have, and that's it. So if someone was going to rob you, what are they going to get? Don't take any jewelry, give them, yeah, that's all I got $20. But people are not in the habit of going around robbing people on the beach because they don't have anything, and it's daylight and they're highly visible, and the chances are that if the cops see somebody robbing people on the beach, they're going to be very interested in arresting them and getting the gun away from them. Remember, this is like it's an American territory. You're not going to have the corruption you would have in other countries. Okay? You're not going to have a gang of robbers telling the police, we want to rob people at the beach, we'll give you 30%. And the cops say, okay. That's not going on over there. They're not going to do that. Okay? Burglary in the house. Double lock, get 2 good locks on the door, have an extra lock put on, that kind of thing. If you've got a balcony and you're worried about the balcony, don't rent the ground floor apartment, rent a floor above. The chances of them climbing in through the balcony are very low. If you're worried about it, measure your balcony with a tape measure. There's a track in the door, and get a piece of wood, balsa wood or square wood that fits very snugly in that spot. You measure it with a tape measure. Put the wood in that groove where the door slides, and they can't get the door off the track. So to get in, now they got to smash the door, make a mess, make noise, draw attention. Probably not going to happen. Okay? They're not going to be able to shake the door and get it to open off the latch, or the other thing you could do, whether you got to talk to the landlord, is drill a hole in the door, not hitting the glass, and you stick a bolt in there, so the door is now bolted, so to speak, to the door that doesn't slide, and that's not going to slide. You can do both if you want, things like that. It's not you know, you're not going to have that kind of problem. You don't want to live in a really poor, really bad, rough neighborhood. You want to go into where the people, the locals are living, not the people that are there for a week or two. And, you know, you'll be okay. You don't want to live in the bad, you know. You could drive, get a hotel, and then go to the apartment you wanted to move into before you sign any papers. Go there at 9:30 at night or 10 o'clock at night. Get a cab to take you there and have the cab stop and listen how much noise you hear. I hear, you know, Benny and the Cucarachas blasting music, and don't go there. You know, then you know not to rent there. It's not good. You got to get a different place. So you can maybe be careful and go there over 2 or 3 days and listen at night. See what's going on at night. You're not going to tell much during the day. See what's going on at night. So anyway, if those of you that are inclined to have the gun, you could have the gun. Buying the gun, bringing the gun in from America. I don't know. You might be able to FedEx it, have a dealer send it to you, an FFL. But I think the easiest way to do it is sell it in America and buy it in Puerto Rico. You know, it's clean and easy. Okay. Does your Medicare work in Puerto Rico? Absolutely. So you have your Social Security health care insurance working in Puerto Rico. So that's probably saving you, if you're a young person, $200-300 a month. If you're an older person, maybe $300 to $600 a month. It can be very expensive depending on how old you are. But it works in Puerto Rico. Now, there's the free plan they give you when you get Social Security. I imagine it comes with disability. You get a free plan. I don't know a lot about it, but it doesn't work in foreign countries. It's worthless. Okay. Like if you're in Italy or you're in the UK, it's worthless, okay? But if you're in Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, or Guam, it works, okay? That's what they use. The people that live there their whole life, they use Social Security. So the free plan gives you hospitalization. So you've got hospitalization down there, okay? Like you do in America. There are procedures that aren't covered and so forth. And then there's add-on plans you can get. One plan allows you to use it for private doctors. Now in America, there's very few places that are going to take your Medicare for outpatient stuff, like, oh, I got a cold or my wrist hurts or something. But in Puerto Rico, it's probably 10 times more doctors. A huge amount of doctors take it over there. It's very different than America. They're like practically all taken. Okay? So you're getting a tremendous coverage if you're worried about stuff like that. I'm usually not. I only buy the health insurance in Israel because it's mandatory by law. Okay. And it comes with other things like the welfare system. So anyway, in Israel you have no choice. It's illegal not to pay for it. If you're broke and you don't have money, then you just tell them and they'll give it to you for free, or very cheap. I paid very little because I was retired, and now I got disability from them, so I am paying way less than I used to. So it's not quite free, but it's close to free. It's very inexpensive for us. All right, so but we don't use it. We don't believe in allopathic medicine very much at all. It might be good if you get shot or something, God forbid. But okay, so you could buy your supplemental insurance just like you do in America over here, And it's the same exact supplemental you get in America, but you would pay less in Puerto Rico. It would be cheaper in Puerto Rico. You get it when you're a Puerto Rican resident. If you were living in Texas and you had it, and then you moved to Puerto Rico, you still have it in Puerto Rico, but you're paying the Texas rate, and then the next year you change it, and you're paying the Puerto Rico rate, and it's going to go down. So whatever kind of deluxe add-on insurance you want to get with Social Security, Medicare, you can get it down there. It'll cover your pharmacies, you know, stuff like that. Your health care is going to be cheaper down there, and then it's not bad. And if you're running with the government Medicare with the supplemental plans, if there was something that they couldn't handle in Puerto Rico, which is probably not going to happen very often, you jump on a jet and go to America, the lower 48, and get it done there. Okay, so that's a unique situation. Okay, that's a very unique situation, and since the bulk of you are going to be on some sort of government pension or payments or a pension, a private pension, the government of Puerto Rico probably isn't going to tax you, although a private pension might be taxable there, I don't know. They probably have sales tax like America does, I don't know what it is, it's probably very similar. Buying a car is probably very similar to America, but I don't know why you'd want one. Maybe you need one, I don't know. Internet, you'll have your high-speed internet, forget about it, you'll get it over there too. What's the cost? It's probably going to be $10 to $20, $30. It's something like America, cheaper than America. Everything's going to be cheaper than America, except imported goods that they have to bring in. Okay, so you know, when you buy a pair of Levi's, you know, if you're going to go visit America once a year or something like that, that's when you buy your phone, and you buy your tablet, and you buy your Levi's and your Reeboks and Nikes, and you buy it when you're in America. Okay, you bring it in. They're not going to inspect you if you come in from Florida to Puerto Rico. They're not going to inspect you because it would be like flying from Florida to California. They're not. Customs and immigration shouldn't be bothering you, you know, about what you brought in. It'd be, you know, it doesn't work that way. Okay. Tobacco, alcohol, I don't know. I didn't check that. It's probably like America. Beer, they probably have local beer in Puerto Rico, you know, a San Juan brewery. I think there is a beer named San Juan or something. I don't use alcohol, so I don't know. All right. Let's continue. So we covered your food, we covered your rent, we covered your health insurance, we covered the beach. What is the national language of Puerto Rico? They have two. Drum roll, English and Spanish. So can you go to any government office and talk English to them? Absolutely. Can you go take your driver's license test in English? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. You can. You can do. Can you vote? Yeah, once you got an address, you're voting. You want to vote in Puerto Rico? You go ahead. Will you understand the legal system there? Yeah, you're not under Napoleon law or any crazy system, Sharia, nothing. It's going to be like, you know, if you go from Tennessee to Oregon, you're going to have to, there's going to be differences in the law. The same if you went from Tennessee to Puerto Rico, but it's going to be real easy for you to figure out what the civil and criminal laws are. It's not going to be difficult for you at all, okay? I've been in Puerto Rico, okay? I've been there. Is it a nice looking place? Yeah. What's the weather like? Tropical. Are you going to get snow in Puerto Rico? Probably once every 100 years. You're not really going to get snow. Is it going to be destroyed because it's the daughter of Babylon? I can't give you a written guarantee. Likely. But it is a territory, it's not an actual state. So maybe it'll get some mercy because it doesn't, it's not exactly the same thing. In other words, they don't have votes. Well, maybe they do. Let's find out. Do they have votes in the Congress? I don't know. I don't know, but we can get that answered really quick. Okay. I assume Puerto Rico has some sort of a state legislature, but do they have congressmen that are federal congressmen that can vote in the Congress in Washington, D.C.? Okay, representation in Washington, D.C. is substantially different than it is for a state. Puerto Rico elects one resident commissioner to the U.S. House of Representatives. The current resident commissioner is Pablo Jose Hernandez, elected to 4-year term. He can introduce bills, participate in debates, serve on congressional committees, and vote in those committees. However, he cannot vote on final passage of legislation on the House floor. Puerto Rico also has no U.S. senators at all. Okay, they may not be destroyed because they're more of a conquest of America than America. So they don't vote in legislation. You understand? There is a difference. They may not get destroyed. I don't know that for sure. But then again, you have Jeremiah 30 verse 11, all the nations he scattered the Israelites into will be destroyed. Do I have reason to believe that the Lord scattered the Israelites into Puerto Rico? No, I don't. But I think there were pirates of the Caribbean. There was a book written, I read it, it's a fascinating book. I have it somewhere, I think, called Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it was around the 1600s, maybe the 1400s, or I think 1600s. There was a bunch of Jewish guys that were pirates working for governments, I think. But let's see, did the Jews ever live in Puerto Rico? Let's look this up. Let's not play with this. Let's do it. Okay, for real. Okay. Was there ever in years past, not the present day, nor the last 60 or 70 years, were there ever a substantial amount of Jewish people living in Puerto Rico, which in the distant past may have been called by another name? it's had a Jewish population for the last 80 to 90 years. So yeah, there's okay. Um, it has a real Jewish population. So they have been exiled there. I would have to say they are. Never a large percentage of them though, but that doesn't mean anything. Let's see. In the Spanish colonial period, Jews were officially prohibited from opening, setting, from openly settling in Puerto Rico under Spanish rule. Yeah, that means they're going to get it. Yeah, with Jeremiah 30, verse 11, though. Which is probably going to come, I don't know, after the destruction of the daughter of Babylon. It might happen on the same day, but probably after. Because the ones looting and pillaging are doing it, the Lord's paying them back for what they did. So I would assume they get their looting and pillaging goods out of there, their booty, get it out of there. So it might happen a short time later, but it's going to probably be separate. Remember that we're in 3 years now of the so-called Shanat year, which isn't the literal year of recompenses. So the Shanat year of redemption, which isn't the literal year, could run several years too. It's going to be a long time for everybody to get back here, to Israel. All right. 1930s to the 40s was when a modern Jewish community readily developed. Jewish refugees escaping Nazi-controlled Europe came to Puerto Rico, particularly San Juan. By 1942, there were enough Jewish families to formally organize the Jewish community of Puerto Rico. 1950s to the 60s, there was another influx of Jews from Cuba, from the '59 revolution. By '74, Puerto Rico was one of the largest Jewish communities in the Caribbean. 1,500 to 3,000 Jews there now. There's Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. Now, Orthodox is not ultra-Orthodox. When I went to Hebrew school, it was bar mitzvah. There was an Orthodox rabbi that he would wear a suit with a fedora hat, and I think he had a yarmulke under the fedora hat some of the time, but not all the time. When you went into the synagogue, they had a box of yarmulkes, kippahs, that you grab one and put it on. Not real sanitary, but that's what they did. They, what did they? They had different names for the island. It was called Borakin. I guess it had a lot of different names. I guess Spain had it as a settlement, and that's why they were speaking Spanish. They were also talking about crypto Jews, which are people that hide and disguise their Jewishness. So let's see. Are there synagogues in Puerto Rico? If so, how many? I'm sure there's synagogues, but are there 3 or are there 15? Or let's see. Oh, Chabad is there. uh, at least 4 established synagogues, so nobody's doing anything through the synagogues. They got one Temple Beth Shalom, Shara Zedek, Chabad Jewish Center, and Toy Ross. Yes. Okay, let's see. What percentage of Puerto Rico is Christian, including Catholics, I suppose, in Christianity? I bet it comes in at about 80%. Well, I actually disappointed you. I missed 94% of Puerto Rico residents say they're Christians, and that will include Catholics. 80% of this identify as being Catholic, 14% would be your evangelical Pentecostal. But it could also be Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, but I doubt there's much of that. I doubt it. So you could pretty much just say it's about 90% Christian. But remember that Catholics are lumped into this. But what are the advantages to that? Well, you got no Sharia law. Now let's talk about these other expat havens. The Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, those places. What you get over there, and this is a real problem, a huge amount of the expats are retired men that are dirty old men, let's be blunt, okay? They're usually 45 to 65, usually in the 50s, but they're still got a pretty decent sex drive, and they are divorced or whatever, and they want to find some woman 20, 30, 40 years younger than her. Literally, some guy 57 will try to find a 21-year-old. I'm not kidding. Okay. Now these women there's a lot of Buddhists living there. And the Buddhists, they don't respect the woman as much as the man, and they'll encourage the woman to go find herself a sugar daddy old man and be nice to him and live there, but make sure he kicks in $100, $200, $300 or so a month to the parents. Okay, it's rather openly done. Okay, so every month there's a bank deposit of, a small amount of money for an American or a Brit or a French person or Australia or whatever, right? And these people typically have a pension of some sort, okay? And the women flock to the guy with the pension, the old man. Why? The old man is going to go for stability. What does that mean? That means that he is not engaged in business, okay? He's not traveling to other countries. He's there and he's not working. When he opens his eyes in the morning and gets out of bed, that's when his day starts. That could be at 4 or 5 in the morning. It could be at 9:30 in the morning. It's up to him. Okay? And she likes that. And he's home all the time. And she's getting that checks for her mother and father like clockwork. And she is a cook, a maid, and a prostitute. She is a prostitute. She is nothing but a prostitute. She is a whore. And the parents encourage it. And these women don't know any better. And over the course of their life, they might have gone through 6 or 7 guys that they lived with. Sometimes they'll get married, sometimes they don't. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll be with this guy, and at the same time, a brother or a sister or them is actually surreptitiously working another dating site because they may be afraid this guy isn't permanent, but they want a guy with a pension, and they're more than happy for him to be 25 years older than what they would get without a pension. So there's people that are work in the digital realm and they make money and they can live anywhere they want. They're creators, they're influencers, they do code, they sell apps, whatever they're doing. There's a million things they could do on the internet. They're doing that. And they don't gravitate to them too much. First of all, that kind of guy has probably got an income of at least 8 or 12,000 a month, U.S. So he's going to be living in a really nice apartment. He's going to eat in nice restaurants. He's going to go to nice bars. He's going to do this. He's going to do that, and he's going to be. There's going to be a lot of other women trying to get to this guy, and they don't like that because he could go good for a year or two and then he falls off. So they are more interested in getting a guy that has a pension of, $2, $3, $4,000 a month than a guy that makes $25,000 a month that's young and working. They don't want that. They want an old retired guy with a steady pension. That's what they want. And these countries are flooded with people like this. They go to the bar district at night, and you can look at YouTube videos, and there's prostitutes all over the street. Tranny prostitutes, regular prostitutes, all kinds of prostitutes, old prostitutes, young prostitutes, all this stuff. It's a big whorehouse. Why would you want to live there? They're Buddhist. The buildings, all the apartment buildings got Buddhist idols in them. Downstairs when you walk in, they got a Buddhist idol. I wouldn't want that. Are you going to get that in Puerto Rico? No. But you got other junk to put up with, like you drive around and you'll see crosses, that kind of thing, the churches, okay. But they're not going out and teaching their women to go prostitute themselves, okay? Now, the other thing you might not know that goes on in these countries is women that are older women that get a pension And I've seen this not in those Asia countries, but in other countries I've traveled to and been to. Older women go after younger men, and it's the same thing in reverse. And you know, you know where I've seen this? Women working in American embassies. They're not on a pension, they're getting a paycheck. They're working in an embassy or an American consulate, they're getting paid good money. They've been on the job many years, and then they get an apartment and they find a guy that's 20, 25 years younger, and they move him in. Usually they're going to want a guy that's 30, 32, and they might be 55 or something like that, 49 or something, And they get a good-looking guy, and they date the guy, and, oh, come on, we'll go to the restaurant, I can pay, don't worry. Oh, let's go to the beach resort, don't worry, I'll pay. That's how it starts, okay? Then comes presents to the guy, right? And this guy may not be a prostitute, he just wound up banging into her, and he likes money and he likes the image of being a gigolo, and that's what he becomes, and which is like a prostitute. And then it evolves to, if it gets serious enough, she says, move in. So now he's living there, he's not paying rent, he's not paying for food, and he's living there with this older woman, and he's so proud of himself, he's a gigolo, It's not as much as what you see with the dirty old men, but it's huge. So, when you move into these apartment buildings in, Cambodia, you get it a lot less. Okay, Philippines and Thailand are massive with this, massive. Okay, and Vietnam, you're going to have it too. You're going to have it there too, pretty substantially. Cambodia less, but you'll still see it. But now, you're living in countries there where the culture is wacko, the Buddhist stuff is out of control. Now, the Philippines has a lot of Christians. You might be able to move there, and you're not going to go to church there, and are you going to find people in the Philippines that are believers that are unchurched? I don't know. My guess is yes, but I don't know. But there's so much of this whoring of the daughters the families do. It's just a really degenerate culture when you see this. I mean, could you imagine you have a daughter and you're teaching her to be completely submissive to strange foreign men, so she's prepared to spend her life as a paid whore, living with them and sending money to the family. And if she wants to go move to Australia with the guy, or America or the UK, that's fine with the family. They apply, the guy applies for her to get a fiance visa, or he's got to prove to the government that he's been with her. They want pictures, they want this. So if he's been living with her for a year or 2 years, it's going to be a piece of cake. And will the Americans give it to him? Yeah, unless she's got some sort of problems, like she's already married, or a prison record, or stuff like that. If she doesn't have anything like that, never been married, and not a criminal, they'll give it to her. So he got her for visa, they go back to America, and then he has 6 months to decide if he wants to marry her or get rid of her. If he marries her, then she gets the green card and all that stuff, and I think 5 years and she's a citizen. Then she could divorce him and stay in America, but they don't. He's still sending the $200-300 a month back to the family. See, they don't live in the cities. These people live in the back country in Thailand or the Philippines or Vietnam, and you're talking about a place where four people could go sit down at a restaurant, and the bill is going to be $10 for four of them to eat a great big meal. You understand what you're dealing with there? That's not eating on a street cart. That's going and sitting down in a real restaurant that might have a fan and air conditioners and a waiter, and the four of you are going to get out for $10, okay? And a house in these places is, $2,000-$3,000. So what you're doing is you're supporting them, and they're not working. And if they have sons, they may help the son build a business up. He may get himself some, gardening tools and work as a gardener for rich people with a lawnmower and different tools. Or maybe he sets up a store and he sells ices, or he gets a little restaurant and sells ceviche or something. They'll do stuff like that. The son, they'll try to put in a business, not the daughters. They'll pimp the daughters off. What happens to these women is usually tragic. They ruin their lives, they ruin their eternity, and you see that there's even some of them that are in their 40s and they're looking for men that are, really old, like me or something, and they're not, they take these women on as a nursemaid and a cleaner of the house and a cook, and if they're going to have sex or not, I don't know. And they wind up like that, and they hope they find some guy that marries them and leaves them something when he dies, and then they can go buy themselves a little house in the village and try to get by or whatever they do. I don't know. But and this is the expat community. Okay, you're gonna be living like an expat, and these places that they're always promoting, I don't know what any true believer would want to live around people like this. This is just the only thing missing is they don't have slavery. Other than that, they'd be like the Romans or something. It's just a low life country. I mean, and they got all the Buddhist junk, and they're sacrificing peaches and mangoes to Buddha. It's ridiculous. I mean, who wants? Paganism is rampant in these places. There's statues all over the place. I mean, and they don't disguise it, like America. It's crazy. So then along comes Puerto Rico, and what's easier to put up with, the Catholics or people that think it's great to raise your multiple daughters as prostitutes and pimp them off to foreigners, and the government cooperates with it because it brings a lot of money into the country. You've got probably hundreds of thousands of these men running around in these countries with their pension money coming in every month, and that money goes to the supermarkets, the bars, the entertainment, the landlord, the buses. It puts money into the country, and if these guys weren't there, the economy would shrink up in the country. These apartment buildings would go vacant. Nobody would be there. They'd get condemned, stuff like that. So the whole country gravitates to this. It's disgusting, really. And they have this with the prostitution. It goes on with gay prostitution and tranny prostitution and all of this stuff. They have massage parlors that are prostitution. They have bar girls they take them in the back room and prostitute. It's sick. It's a sick society. And that's what they promote on the internet. But when you look at Puerto Rico, if you want to get out of the high cost of living in America, it has a lot of sense. And you may, biblically speaking, in terms of punishment of daughter rebellion, you may not even be in America. You're not going to hear this from anybody else. I can't guarantee you that God's not going to treat it as it is America, but I have a feeling that it would not be the case, because they don't vote. They don't pass the laws and the bills, and they don't control what the country, so they cannot control what the country does, like invading other countries and doing all that, passing, rights, giving rights to certain categories of people and condemning other people. You know what I'm talking about. They don't have a hand, or they don't have a say in that. So maybe they're not going to get it as bad, right? They're more or less a conquest of America. Hawaii and Alaska, they vote. They got congressmen, they got senators that vote. That's not the same thing. So you can use your health insurance there, and it's going to be cheaper to get the supplemental, I believe, the different supplementals. And when you buy the kind that lets you go to the private doctors, there's tons of private doctors that'll take it down there. So if you're worried about health care, like I say, I only would buy health care because I have to here in Israel, but it's, and it's, I don't know what I would do if I didn't. I probably wouldn't buy it. I don't, it's so dirt cheap here, it's not a big deal when you're old. But it provides other things in Israel that are not just going to the doctor, or lots of other things that have nothing to do with going to the doctor, like getting home health care workers and things like that, or getting meals delivered to the house. If you go to the government and the government has the plan in your area, in my area they don't, for 280, I don't know, it's about $100 a month. They give you 2 meals a day, every day. You get a hot meal and you get a not hot meal, which is like salad and different things. And it costs, I believe, it could be, no, I can tell you what it is. It's, I can tell you in a minute. I wish they had it here, but they don't. So I'm having trouble getting it in my area, getting anything like this. It's I'm halfway there. I might get it yet. Okay, so no, it's $240 a month, not shekels. $240 a month, and they give you 2 meals a day every day. A hot meal and a not-hot meal. So that means you're probably 80-90% of your food intake for the day is costing you $240 a month, and they give you food that's easy for old people to chew, and they balance it for old people, and you get proteins and carbs. They got college graduate dietitians planning these meals for you. They have, of course, they're kosher, so you got to put up with that. But you'll get fish, or you'll get chicken, or turkey, or beef. For beef, they usually do meatballs because they're worried about old people chewing on a tough steak. The kosher steaks are tough; they're not good steaks. But so they do meatballs, so you get the beef. I don't know how they do the chicken and how they do the turkey and how they do the fish, because I've never eaten it. I don't know. And you get vegetables, and you get fruit, and you get soups in the cool weather, and it's where you gonna find that? See, Israel is got great social benefits. Okay, it's just you gotta push and push and push. to get in there. And I happen to live in a community that doesn't have this, and believe me, the price of food here is so expensive. It's drastically expensive, okay? It's huge what we gotta spend on food. So if I couldn't get it from the private charities, which I still might be able to get it somehow, some way. Anyway, you can get it this way from the community, but they don't deliver in my area. I'm having trouble getting it. The surrounding areas have it. For some lousy reason, my community doesn't have it. Okay. So, are you leaving America if you go to Puerto Rico? I guess technically you are, but then maybe you're not so much. But you have no adjustment. You have everything. I mean, the people you'll find people that don't speak English there, I'm sure, but you're going to find a massive amount of people that speak English because it's an official language of the country. And all you got to do is show up, and now you're a Puerto Rican, right? And you got beaches, and you got good weather, and you don't have a really bad crime rate. It's probably better than what a lot of America is like. And you've got beaches all over the place. You've got mountain climate there to some extent. I don't think too much. It's a big island. It usually doesn't suffer that badly from the hurricanes, but you'll get hit with hurricanes. Look, Florida gets hit with hurricanes for crying out loud. New Orleans gets hit. And a lot of places get hit. But you can keep yourself safe. Like I say, if you're 2 or 3 blocks from the beach, you're probably going to experience next to no serious problems from the hurricanes, because they come when they make landfall. As soon as they hit the land, the beach, they drop one number down. So if they come in at a 3, they're a 2 as soon as they hit the beach. And then once they start going in, they're going to probably drop another number. So you're going to have wind, you're going to have rain, or you're going to have flooding in your house. Well, don't live on the ground floor, and you're probably not going to have any flooding. And that's that. You're going to be okay. I don't think you're going to get hit. Even in Florida, where they had hurricanes that were 5s come in, I watched the damage. I drove out there when it was over, and the massive damage were the structures that were on the ocean side of the road that goes, they always have a road by the end of the beach where the sand stops, and they were having structures put on the beach, hotels, restaurants, and they got devastated. They got ripped up. Okay, but the people that you had a beach that was maybe 60, 100 yards, then you had a 2 or 4 lane highway, then you had a sidewalk, then you had apartment buildings and houses. Then normally nothing happened to them. And if you're living 2 to 3 blocks back, normally nothing's going to happen to you, even on a bad one. Remember, a 5 comes in, it's a 4 right away, and it may hit you. Probably would be more like a 3 or something like that. You can always evacuate if you get nervous about it, but it's usually not that big a deal. Or you could live 4 or 5 blocks in if you're worried. If you go in, let's say, 5 miles from the beach, you're probably going to experience a hurricane as nothing more than windy and rainy. That's it. You're not going to really be going through the hurricane garbage. Um, I don't think they get tornadoes down there. And what are you going to do down there? Well, assuming you're not working, what are you going to do? Well, think how easy it would be to witness to people that know who Yeshua is, know his mother's name was Miriam or Mary, and even though they go to the Catholic stuff, they still are aware that nobody's going to bother you for having a Bible. There must be 50 or 100 bookstores in Puerto Rico where you can go in and buy a Bible. Maybe they want to sell you a Catholic Bible, but there would be serious Bible stores where you could get a Strong's Concordance, for instance, or get a King James or stuff like that, right? I think the post office delivers there without having to pay special postage fees. Let's see. This we could find out. Okay. If I sent a package to Puerto Rico from one of the lower 48 states in America, would I just pay regular American postage, like sending something from Florida to Texas, or would I be having to pay a higher fee because it's not on the mainland? Let's see, I don't know the answer. I was right. You don't have to pay international postage to mail stuff to Puerto Rico. So if you were going to buy from Amazon, they would probably do the free delivery with the postal system for you without much trouble. The Postal Service classifies Puerto Rico as part of the domestic mail service. So you'll get the full U.S. Post Office down there. Let's see, what is the flight time? What is the flight time from Puerto Rico to Miami Beach? When you hit Miami, you can get a plane and go anywhere in America. It's 2.5, 3 hours. It's pretty good flight time. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, what about going to Cuba? Now, Cuba's a horse of another color. It's not even a horse. It's an elephant or a giraffe. I mean, it's so far gone. It's a communist country. It's got dictatorship. It's probably got a horrific crime rate. Trump is going after them. It's not anything you want to do. Okay, you have no rights there. Even a citizen doesn't have any rights. What rights are you going to have as a tourist? I know someone who went there with kids. This was years ago, and the kids, they were going to the beach. And I don't know if you know this. When you go on cruise ships, a lot of people with children buy these little walkie-talkies at like Lafayette or some cheap store, you know, Walmart, $20, $30, you know, and they charge them up and they give them to the kids, and the parents might have one so they can call the kids and stuff like this, right?
I have news.
Yeah.
Terry Morey died.
Who?
Terry Morey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just of old age kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was an S-Bot. I'm not worried about that person. I just was curious. They live down the street. So, no, Cuba is, you don't go to Cuba. Um, that's not an option. The U.S. Virgin Islands is very expensive. Cuba and the U.S. Virgin Islands would be the same thing. You would probably be able to use your Medicare and all that other stuff and get a gun. But yeah, I don't. It's just costly. I've been in there more than I've been to the. I don't know how many times I went to Puerto Rico. Once I specifically remember, because this is when I was working in the world and had plenty of money. I rented a horse-drawn carriage, and the guy was driving us around Puerto Rico, and I was scared to death because the guy was aggressively weaving the poor horse through the traffic, and this horse wasn't afraid of the traffic, and he should have been, but he wasn't. He was a good horse, and I didn't enjoy it at all. I was scared. Cars were going. Anyway. Yeah, it's an interesting. I think I went to I think I was there twice. The second time I think I went to a chiropractor. Now, I don't remember if that was. I think it was Puerto Rico. I think it was that. He was a baseball player and became a chiropractor. And I called him up, I think, from the ship. So anyway, he worked on me really good. He was good. I mean, it worked. And I had to walk through the local neighborhoods to find him. And I felt a little uneasy, but there was nothing in it. No, I was in the U.S. Virgin Islands, my guess, 4 times. I was also in the British Virgin Islands, too. When I was going to the Virgin Islands was the late 90s or early 2000s, and a lot of cruise ships would pull up. There wasn't much to do there. They had a beach. You could go to the beach. Well, I didn't go take cruises to go to the beach. And you could go shopping, and there wasn't much there. What happened, it was beautiful though. When the cruise ships pulled up, the police in the Virgin Islands were American cops, basically, but working in the Virgin Islands for the American government, you might say. And they were non-stop police cars every place the tourists were going. They saturated it with police. I mean, you'd always see a police car. That's how scared they were that the criminals would start fleecing the tourists. They just kept it going non-stop. And they hired these cops predominantly from the local population. They also had a guy, when we got off the ship, they used to do this every now and then, as this was the bounce back from 9/11. They'd make the whole ship wake up early in the morning, and they'd have an immigration inspector or a few of them there. They would, this is already customs and immigration, so they had a gold badge and they had a gun. And they showed up on the boat, and you had to give them your passport. And they looked at a ledger sheet they had for your name, and they put a check mark on it. So in other words, you went over there, they looked, it's passport please, you gave them your passport. They opened the passport, they looked at your name, they looked at the ledger, they put a check mark in, thank you, sir. And they made you wake up in the morning for this. It was just the stupidest, idiotic thing you could imagine, right? So I got to talking to the guy, and I said, how'd you get the job down here? I was curious because I think the guy was like, he came from, Oklahoma or something, and he wanted to live in the tropics, so he applied and got transferred down there. And he said, no, I live here. I got the job. I live here. Oh. I didn't understand. So yeah, he was a federal agent, so he could go to Florida or New York and arrest people if he wanted to, and he saw a violation. So that's was interesting to me. So the police were really federal employees, or I don't know. It's weird. Puerto Rico, you got police there that I think are Puerto Rico police or San Juan police. I think the Virgin Islands had a little bit of a different setup. The problem with the Virgin Islands is you got a crime problem, but aside from the crime problem, it's very expensive. So you're not going to really save. So if you wanted to go live down there, I'm reasonably sure you'd be able to get a gun just like Puerto Rico, maybe not, but you would be paying, 900, 1,000 rent, and you would maybe be on a beach or something. I don't think it's that desirable. If there's somebody that has a good, generous pension or high Social Security, maybe they would, There's people that get $4,500, $5,000 in Social Security, you might want to look at that, but I think Puerto Rico is the move. Puerto Rico has a lot of Spanish people. Virgin Islands is got a lot of black people. They're both. You're going to get by with English real good. You're not going to have any problems with English. Okay, learning Spanish is easy to do if you want to bother with it. How hard is it? You walk into a store and the greeting would be hola or buenos dias. If you want to, I wouldn't be going around and giving people greetings. I would just walk in and smile. And what kind of money are you going to be using in Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico pesos or anything like that? No, you're using U.S. dollars. Can you? Or literally, you can walk off the plane in Puerto Rico, go to a bank, and say, "Hi, I just moved here. I'd like to open up a bank account." Oh yeah, sure. Come here. What kind of ID do you have? Oh, here's my passport. Here's my Florida driver's license. Oh, okay. Well, you're going to be living here? Yeah. Do you have an address? No, I don't have an address yet. Well, we'll want us to give you the hotel, and then as your address, and then when you get an apartment, we'll switch it over. Yeah, that's fine. How much you want to put in? Oh, I'll give you $700 today. Oh, great. And boom, you fill it out, and then you get temporary checks, and you got a bank account. That's it. Try that in another country. See what happens. Are you going to recognize a lot of the fast food places there? Yeah, you're going to be the same ones you get in Oklahoma or Oregon. It's the same places, the chains, but the prices may vary. But you've got to understand, if you're going to be an expat on a pension, you don't do that stuff. Go where the locals go. Now, if the locals are going into the fast food places, then it's probably a reasonably priced. But let me just make sure they use the U.S. dollar. I can't imagine them not using the U.S. dollar. Is the money in Puerto Rico the U.S. dollar? Yeah, it's it. So if you wanted your bank, your social security, or your military pension to be deposited into your Puerto Rico bank account, they would work and they'd give you a debit card or whatever, so there's a lot of advantages. You don't have to really spend a lot of time adjusting to the culture. There'll be some cultural changes in Puerto Rico, but it's not going to be very different. The funny thing is these idiots that go to the Philippines and Thailand to find, women that, you know, if they went to Puerto Rico, they'd find out the women there were quite good looking, and they, if these men had social skills enough to actually meet a real woman and have a relationship with a real woman, they might enjoy the Puerto Rican women. Of course, the age difference, no woman there is going to want to marry a guy 25 years older than her. You're not going to get into that. I think the realm of normal is about 10 years difference, but they can't have social relationships with the women. They don't know how to. They're not able to. They're weird, and they're troubled people, and that's why they get into a situation like that. A normal person that's a believer, which isn't a normal person. I mean, a real believer is rare. Would sit there and look, what are these guys crazy? I mean, I could see hiring a Filipino woman or a Thailand woman to come clean the house twice a week for 2 or 3 hours a day. That I agree with, but to have these strange women they don't know move in and live there and sleep with them and have sex with them. I mean, what about disease? Why would they even want to do it? So, that's, so when you go to these places and you're going to be in the expat world, you're not going to go live in a village in Thailand, 95 miles away from the city where the population is 5,000 and they're all speaking Thai and you don't speak Thai. And what are you going to do? Buy a house for $3,000 and move in there? And then what are you going to do? It's not going to work. It won't work. Where if you were in Puerto Rico and bang it, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Florida. Oh, where in Florida? Oh, yeah, I've been there, What are you doing in Puerto Rico? I got tired of living stateside. I want to live down here for a while. Oh, how do you like it? Oh, it's nice, I like it. Oh, good. That's what you'll be running into, So, they never talk about that. Isn't that amazing? And I'm no expert at this stuff. For crying out loud, I'm a novice. I just researched it quickly. It didn't take me a lot of time. I know what to look for because I lived in other countries, several. So I know what to look for. But, and I know what you need to do to make your money stretch. The kiss of death for the expat is, oh, it's so cheap here. So they, instead of, a 1-bedroom apartment for $390 that's comfortable, they see that they can get for $800 a 3-bedroom house with a garden and a pool and a garage or something like that. And they say, what do they need it for? But they'll just do it, And then they start expanding. They say, well, I can go eat in this restaurant for, $2, but I can go here and get a big American type meal for $9, which would have cost $30 stateside. So they go and they drop to $9. You see, and they do this and they run their savings out and they burn through their pension, and then they eventually have to leave, and it's where you can be smarter. In addition, going back home to visit your family and friends in America is not the same thing as flying in from Vietnam or Thailand or the Philippines. Going in from Puerto Rico is going to take about the same amount of time as flying from Miami to New York. Literally about the same amount of time. So you don't have snow, you don't have the freezing cold, you don't have that. You can possibly alleviate your struggling in the economy where you'll be comfortable. Now in America you can get an apartment for $700, $800. That's a nice apartment, okay? But when you start packing in the food and you start packing in all the other expenses, the air conditioning, the utilities and transportation, and everything starts adding up, it starts breaking the bank. The big thing you gotta do is knock down your rent, and you gotta knock down your price of food with good food, okay? And if you do that, then you become, instead of struggling every month and hoping you're gonna make it, you become comfortable. And then you can start relaxing and stuff like that. So I don't tell anybody that they should move or not. It's just an option. And I'm very troubled by the amount of people that I know from within our ranks here that are homeless, and it's rather scary to me. And I don't like it, and I'm trying to find ways, around it, and that's why I came up with this. We got some nerd coming around here asking us to gift them a phone. Yeah, you've got to learn that, people that, look how many times this idiot posted it, when they come around and you don't know them and they just show up out of the clear blue sky and they say, oh, send me money, I need money, you don't pay attention to that. You don't know who they are. They're just Weisenheimers. News about imported beef in the U.S. I'm not up on. They're importing beef because the beef is down in America. Yeah, I read the chat periodically. The production is down in America, and they're importing it. I don't know. They imported it in Israel too. So people are telling me in America for any kind of decent hamburger meat, ground beef. In Israel, we don't say that. We say minced. I don't like the word minced, but it gets the point across. Ground sounds better to me. I can remember my grandmother, she'd buy the cuts of beef, the cheaper cuts, and she had the meat grinder. It was some kind of metal thing. She had it mounted, and she'd hold the meat, pushing it in and go like this, and then there was a wooden plug, like a round thing like this, that you put on top of the meat when it got close, because you don't want to put your fingers in there and then it slips and you grind your finger up now. So you put the wood there, so if it slips and the wood goes in, well, you scratch the wood, who cares, So, that ground beef, the grinder, the meat grinder, So, that's how I refer, but it can cost that in Israel, but now they're starting to use ground beef as a loss leader in the supermarkets, and you can get it in a supermarket, I don't know, $5 for some good, I think $5 a kilo, I don't know, it's lower priced. My wife does the shopping, I'm unsure what the prices are. It's a lower price though. And then you have chicken wings here, which also are the legs. Um, they treat it as junk food in Israel. They're very, very cheap. My wife is quite good at getting the chicken wings and painting them with a sauce and putting them on our outside grill, and it tastes rather good. But the problem is she'll make me so many of them I can't finish it, and I try to finish it, and so I gotta tell her not so many, not so many. And that's cheap, so we could use that. She found a way to dry age cheap steak meat in the house. The cheap junk steak meat that's really rough and no taste. And she has a way of dry aging it now. She has ways of 2 to 4 weeks aging, and the stuff when she's done with it, you can't quite cut it with just a fork, but it cuts easy, and it's very, very tasty. I don't know exactly how she does it, but she does that, and that comes out really nice. And you know what I'm trying to do is get on the food subsidy here. Over the years, offerings have come down so much. It's really rough. So and rent goes up, price of goods goes up, and the offerings come down all at the same time, and it just hits you, you know. So we're trying to get on this food program, and you know, it's just not in our area. We're trying to make a hybrid for it, and it's, I don't know if we'll be successful or not. We're gonna find out. So pray for us to have success with getting on the food program, and also having success through with dealing with the public and private welfare system and charities in Israel. We're, trying to move through. The thing is, a lot of the charities are disorganized. All they know is they have a blueprint, and if you can meet their blueprint, you have it. Now, I haven't tried this, I might be able to get free groceries where they deliver it once a week. That might work. I don't know. But I haven't done that because I'm trying to get the prepared meals. It's hard for my wife to cook. She can't, it's trying to relieve that pressure off her. And if I cook, she complains what a mess I make. So she's, anyway, we're trying to work our way through this, and there's a lot of ways to get there in Israel. I'll just have to keep prodding around and get it. Now, the other thing I didn't tell you about Puerto Rico is this. Can you get food stamps in Puerto Rico? Yes. Can you, probably if your pension is, or your Social Security or disability or military retirement, military pension, any of that is around 1,000, maybe even to 1,500, but 1,000 to 1,200 a month. You'll be able to probably get food stamps from the same federal program in Puerto Rico. Why nobody talks about this, I don't know. Okay, you can get food stamps. Can you get Section 8 housing there? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. They have it just like in America. You gotta get on a waiting list. I don't know how bad it is down there or not. I have no idea, but you can get Section 8 housing. You could probably get some sort of rent subsidy also if you're at 1,500 a month. I'd say that's the high side for getting these benefits, but you might still qualify. Now remember that you're not going to get hoodwinked over there because all the rules will be in English and we'll be talking to them in English. We may try to discriminate against you, but then you could always talk to a supervisor or, things like that. Tell them you're going to talk to a lawyer, you may not, or go to legal aid. There'll be a legal aid society there too. That'll also help you get benefits. So I forgot that. So you can also get your food stamps. It's probably not going to be hard to do. How much they're going to give you is going to depend on how many people are you, and stuff like that. One person, I don't know what they give, $200 maybe, I don't know, but it helps, right? They use a card, but it's not called SNAP. It's a different program that they use there in Puerto Rico. It's got a different name, but it's very much like it. You get the card, and swipe it. And a rent subsidy also is possible. But if you're making, $2,300 a month retirement, you're not going to get those benefits. If you were making 1,000 or something like that, you'd probably have trouble living in Puerto Rico. So I wouldn't suggest you move. You're going to have problems elsewhere too. You might be able to go to Cambodia and make it on 1,000, maybe. It'd be really close and dangerous. I don't know. I like to think 1,500, you're okay. Now maybe you could go to Puerto Rico with 1,000 and get your food stamps and get a rent subsidy, and that would probably, maybe that would bring you up an extra $300, $400, $500 a month. I don't know. Couldn't you get, Meals on Wheels and stuff like that in Puerto Rico? I don't know. Let's see. I didn't think of that. Does Puerto Rico run Meals on Wheels type programs for people that have health impairments and are old? Puerto Rico has Meals on Wheels for older and homebound people, including people whose disability or medical conditions prevent them from preparing food or going to a senior meal center or a soup kitchen. So, Puerto Rico receives federal Older Americans Act funding specifically for home delivery meals. Millions of dollars awarded to Puerto Rico's Office for the Advocate of Older Persons for Home Delivery Nutrition. So that means that you would probably have a more generous income allowance on this. 1,500 would probably in no way knock you off the program. And you would get your 2 meals a day for free, so that would knock your food bill down probably a good, at least 400 a month. You see the advantages for an old person on a small budget going to Puerto Rico? You're in a resort weather climate. It's a resort climate, okay? You're living in a tropical island, okay? You're exploiting the welfare system just like they did to the United States years ago. You do it down there, but it's the same pocketbook as the feds, and I guess some of it comes out of Puerto Rico. So anyway, you go down there and now you got your food stamps, you got your rent subsidy, and then you get your Meals on Wheels. They'll probably never cross a line and say, why are you getting food stamps and getting Meals on Wheels? I doubt they'd ever figure that out. And they may not put it together, because you could say, well, I need that. I need paper towels, I need toilet paper, I need soap, I need shampoo, I need coffee, I need tea, I need snacks at night. If I don't eat at night, I get very irritable and I can't. People get that way. You get hungry and I need to have snacks. So you have your food stamps too. Why am I the only one that ever? I've never seen anybody talk like this. I don't know. I hope this helps some of you if you try and to do it, But you really need to have a fixed income of some sort to pull this off. Could you do it on $600 a month or $800? I don't think anybody would try. On 900 or 1,000, you're really rubbing it close, and I don't know how long it would take you to get food stamps, Meals on Wheels, rent subsidies, and I don't know. That probably have to have savings and stuff. Now, there's other things you could do if you have a buddy that's also, let's say, 2 women, 2 men. They got friends, and you can go down there and double up and get a 2-bedroom apartment, which is probably not going to be twice the price. You might go from, $450 to $550 in rent or something, and now you got a 2-bedroom, and you each got a bedroom and you share it. You can do stuff like that. Then if you buy a car, you could split the price of the car. But they'll have Ubers there, and they'll have all that other stuff too, buses. And, if you're old, you'll probably be able to ride the buses for free or close to it or something. Um, you'll be able to turn the TV on and hear all sorts of stuff in English as well as Spanish. You'll probably be able to have, the same kind of internet you're used to. If you use Netflix, you'd have that. YouTube, you'd have that. And there's a chance you'd survive the daughter of Babylon. Getting destroyed. I don't know for that one. Pray. Let's pray. My Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray you reveal to us if Puerto Rico will be destroyed with the daughter of Babylon. And if you're going to consider it part of that or not, I don't know. I ask this B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. We'll see if we get an answer. We may or may not get an answer. But they don't have an army. I think the people there go into... Wait, there is no draft anymore, so that doesn't count. I guess they could join the army if they want to. They could go live in America if they want to. Well, let's see what they... Can a person who was born and raised and lived in Puerto Rico just pick up and move into the United States anytime they want and move into one of the states and go to work, open up a bank account, and so forth? Or do they have to go through any immigration? Yeah, they're become U.S. citizens from birth, so maybe they are part of America, and they'll go with the daughter of Babylon. They are U.S. citizens from birth, so they can just, like you can go from Louisiana to Florida, just get in a car and drive there and set up shop in Florida, no problem. Well, that's the same for them. They just go from Puerto Rico to Florida, or go to Louisiana or Mississippi or Oregon. That's no difference. So, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm not trying to give you an avenue to escape the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, or escape Jeremiah 30:11. Possibly going to a Cambodia where it is cheap to live, you would escape the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, and possibly Cambodia would go down in Jeremiah 30:11, not at the same time as the DOD necessarily, so I don't know, But the lifestyle in Cambodia would be much harder for you, especially as you got older. But it wouldn't be the case in Puerto Rico, because you would still have the welfare system, You wouldn't have any welfare system in Cambodia. Health insurance could be a monster when you get older. You wouldn't have any of those things in Puerto Rico. You might have to wait for that 1 year period where you get to add your Medicare onto Social Security, your paid options. I think once a year you can change it, so you might have to work the timing of that right to change it to Puerto Rico. That's something you'd have to put up with. But you would still have it, and I think it would be, if you had it in America, the extra pay for options of Medicare, they would apply in Puerto Rico, but you would pay a lower price the next time. So, there are advantages. And when you consider you can exploit the welfare system, look, theoretically, you could pursue this and get on Section 8 eventually as you got older. And it might be easier to get on Section 8 there than it is in your jurisdiction. It may not be, and it may be. And then you're paying 5% rent, which you're probably never going to pay either. So the landlord won't care if you pay it or not, but if you got to pay it, you pay it. So I would pay it. You pay the 5%, and then you get your Meals on Wheels. You wouldn't get a rent subsidy. You'd have your Medicare, and you might be able to get that subsidized, the add-on payment. I don't know. You basically, imagine you're getting rid of your rent obligation from Section 8, and you're getting rid of the bulk of your food costs. You're probably eliminating 75% of it by the Meals on Wheels, and then you get food stamps to cover that. So I mean, all of a sudden your $1,200 a month or whatever may start to feel like $2,200 or $2,500 a month. They milked the American welfare system in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it still goes on. It still goes on to this day. So you can do it. I remember once in college, my mother called one of her friends up who was in the hat business, women's hats, and so her friend's brother owned it, and they gave me a job packing hats for the summer, So I had to take, I don't remember how many buses, 2 or 3 buses to get there, which was annoying, waiting in the heat and everything. But anyway, I did it. And the guys that he had there in his crew were Puerto Rican guys. And I had a good time with them, talking around, joking around with them. One of them was in Vietnam. But he was living in America, so he might have got drafted for that reason. I don't know. Maybe they drafted Puerto Ricans. I can't remember. Probably they did. So, he was, he was sharing his personal life, and the other guys were Puerto Rico too. And what I got the impression with the one guy was he would, they'd go home, and when he got home, there was basically a lot of loud music out in the street and drinking beer. And he bought himself a Camaro, not a real expensive version of the Camaro, but a new Camaro. And that was a pretty hot car to have back in, this was probably 67 or 68, I don't know, something like that, probably 67. That was a pretty cool car to have, Anyway, I guess that's what let me get a prayer going for us. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for us to have a good day and a good night, and your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, rest, and shalom, peace would be on us. And I pray for us to have strength, stamina, and endurance, and I pray for us and our animals and pets. We have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us, healing as needed. And I pray also for our animals and pets that we would be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for us, meaning me and my wife, all the true believers and their households, that we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and that if any of us need to find housing, we would get it. If any of us need to find a job or work, we get it. if any of us need clients and customers, we get that. And I pray we all understand the scriptures better, and that I can do better videos and teach better B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And now I'll do spiritual warfare a little differently. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray, my Heavenly Father, for me and my wife and the true believers in our households and families. If any of us, of these people, have an unclean spirit in them, it is loosed out of them and kicked out of them immediately, never to return again. And if there's any evil, wicked spiritual warfare directed at any of us, it's loosed off us, made null and void for all time, shall never return in a similar fashion or exactly for all time, or any other rendition of it, the same thing, shall never return again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And nothing happened to the broadcast because I'm on a different network, and I think the mechanics or the equipment of the other network was the problem, not an attack. So we don't have any difficulty at all. I'm just using a different network, which I'll do until I get the other one repaired, which I don't know if it'll be today or whatever, but it'll be done. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.